Hello and welcome. My name's Andy Crook and I'm your host for tonight's training. Tonight's subject is sales per customer. Every week I try and do a live training on one of the 5 pillars of business. My mission is to help garage owners become more successful in business, and to that end I provide free training every week. If it's your first time here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's get into tonight's subject on the subject of sales per customer. Sales per customer is an interesting metric because it doesn't really tell you much on its own. It's linked to other data, but it's an important one to measure because it gives you some indications about what's happening within the business. So it's linked to average invoice value as a piece of data, because if you know the average invoice value and the number of sales per customer, it can give you an idea, if you know how long you want to measure customer lifetime value over. So basically you're going to multiply average sales value times by the number of sales per customer times by the number of years your typical customer is with you, and you're going to get your lifetime value of a customer. So that's why this is an important piece of data to measure, because it fits into the lifetime value of a customer. Now, the lifetime value of a customer is pretty subjective, but it gives you an idea of how much each customer is worth to your business. Now, on its own, once again, that's not particularly helpful, but it's a nice thing to measure against, for example, the cost of winning a customer, because a business will quickly run out of money if it costs more to win a customer than a customer spends with it. It stands to reason. However, we don't really look at it like that, because if let's say a customer's average lifetime with you is around about 5 years, so you're gonna, if you like, have an income from that customer for 5 years, your average customer. Obviously it could be less, it could be more, but we're going to use 5 years as the average. You wouldn't want to, in the first years of running your business, to spend more than the customer brings in on marketing that customer to win that customer than the customer is going to bring in the short term, because you'll be losing money. So you can see how, though lifetime value of a customer is an interesting thing to know and measure within the business, because it gives you an idea of how much you could spend to win customers, it's not obviously the target of how much to spend to win a customer, which is sort of an important thing to distinguish. And if you're a new business, it's almost impossible to know what the lifetime value of a customer is, because even if you knew what, you had an idea of what the average invoice value or the average transaction value, what you're going to have to look at then is you really won't know in the first couple of years of business is how frequently customers will buy off you. So it's very difficult to get an idea of lifetime customer value. So you'll have to look at some comparators, some data from outside your business to try and build up a lifetime customer value as an idea of what that would be. So if you're a more mature business, these numbers will give you a really good steer on what's happening inside your business. So what I like to look at sales per customer for is I think it's an important indicator of customer loyalty and satisfaction. So I've just had a comment pop up, and Nathan's had the same customer for over 20 years, which sounds brilliant, but unless there's new customers coming in as well, those customers will die, which is a bit of a worrying thought. So we can see how it everything, you have to look at it on the value of all of these things as a big holistic picture within the business. I am joking then, but yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The customer loyalty and satisfaction is based on sales per customer. So you could have a customer for 20 years who comes to you every year for their MOT, and that customer comes to you every year and has his MOT. He does his own repairs, or she does, and they do their own servicing. Is that customer valued? you could argue yes, or you could say, it's probably not a great customer. It depends on your business approach. I would like to see a customer who comes for more than, just the essentials. He sees you as an integral part of their, if you like, their mobility solution. And that's what we're trying to sort of change the way we offer garage services, if you like, to your customers. The way to do it, the way to look at this in terms of customer loyalty, and Nathan's already onto it, which is you want to increase the number, if you like, of customers per household. Now that's interesting, isn't it? So sales per household is something that I like to sort of have a keep an eye on, and you can do some really simple market research just by having a conversation with a customer, and by their age and their demographic, and you can get into a conversation with customers. So if they're a younger customer, you say, having the conversation, you say, have you managed to buy a house prices, blah blah blah, and they say, oh no, I'm still living at mum and dad. Oh, where do mum and dad take their car? If you've already had a look on your garage management system, you'll know how many customers, if you like, are registered to that address. And once those younger customers who once were at that address have gone out and bought their own house, did they, if they've moved in with someone as their partner, spouse, etc., brought their car to you? Are you winning the customer loyalty satisfaction battle in your area? That's where this comes down to. So interesting stat that I sort of dug up today when I was looking at what to talk about with the sales per household, because in my head, possibly because of where I live, it's a little bit more rural, people need cars to get around. You cannot move come 6 o'clock in my street. There are cars on the pavement, there are cars on the road, there are cars on the driveway, there are cars in the garage. Every house appears to have, I'm going to conservatively say at least two cars per household where I live right now. And that's quite important, isn't it? Because it depends on where you are to how many cars per household there might be. So if you're in a more sort of inner city situation, there might be less than one car per household on average, because they rely more on public transport. So you have to work really hard to gain a customer, whereas in a more rural setting, if you've won one customer, and this is what I'm going to get to, selling to that existing household might be easier than trying to win a new one. So in the UK, there are 31 million cars. That's not vehicles. I think there's about 38.5 million vehicles registered in the UK. So there are 31 registered cars on the UK roads, and there are just coming up nearly 27 million households. So that for every household in the UK, there are nearly 1.2 cars. So just about every household in the UK has more than one car. I know that's taking big numbers and averaging them out, but it's fair to say then that just about every one of your customers, if you're in a more rural setting, so if you're, like I say, if you're in an inner city area, this may not quite apply quite as much. But if you're in a normal rural setting, a town, or even if you're in the countryside, I can almost guarantee there is another vehicle to be captured in that household. And what are you doing to get it? And that is, if you like, the essence of tonight's training is, do you measure it? Do you measure, or are you looking at sales per customer? Now, we can also look at it in the way of it used to be easy to get more than one sale per customer because the service interval was 6 months. I'm talking a few years back now for our younger members, but certainly when I was first into the trade in the 80s, most cars were serviced twice a year. You had a sort of winter service and a summer service, and your MOT, and you generally aligned the MOT to one of those two, and that's how it was. You just about every vehicle you looked after as a garage, you'd see twice a year minimum, because they'd come in for their servicing if they had a regular servicing regime. Now service intervals are such that it isn't actually strictly necessary that you're going to see the car every year. I mean, the service interval could be that you see the car every 18 months. It could be that you see the car every 24 months. You may recommend to your customers, as we do, that we should see the car at least every year, and we can make a decision on whether or not it needs any routine maintenance. And that's the term maybe to use instead of servicing. You can start to use the term routine maintenance, because I'd argue a vehicle that's used infrequently probably needs less servicing but more routine maintenance. You call it what you will, but it's about educating the customer, because what we want from a garage point of view is for them to feel the benefit of the services rather than the services we provide. So if we're preventing sticking calipers, stuff like that, that the customer benefit is there, therefore they're willing to spend the money. So like I say, sales per customer is a great, in my opinion, way of focusing your marketing effort, if that's probably the right word, on selling to your existing customers. When it comes to marketing, and this is more of a performance topic than marketing, but there's some cross-cutting themes here. When we do our marketing, we almost always focus on new customers, winning new customers. However, we neglect our existing customers, and there are, I suppose there are lies and damn statistics, but the sort of commonly bandied about figure for how much it costs to win a new customer compared to an existing one is about 10 times. It costs 10 times as much to win a customer than keep one. That's often the figure that's bandied about. I'm going to say it costs much more to win a customer than keep an existing one, or sell to an existing one, because you already know about them. They already, if you know what I talk about when I talk about marketing, know, like, and trust. They already know you. Hopefully they like you and trust you. Therefore the sale is much easier than it is to a customer that's completely cold. So how do you increase sales per customer then? So we're going to talk about upselling and cross-selling in a future training event, and that's one way. Another way you can look at is loyalty programs. Yeah? You could look at a family discount scheme. You could look at, like they do it in certain coffee shops, where you get a loyalty card and you fill it in, and every time they have a major piece of work done, they get a thing off, and then they get a free whatever it is. You could give away, for example, the MOT. And I'm not suggesting that's what you do. What I'm saying is you could, if it's worth it in terms of, remember what I said before, lifetime customer value against the cost of winning an additional customer. Keeping the two cars in your garage that belong to that household instead of them going to a competitor or to the franchise dealer is probably worth an MOT in the long term. You can target your existing customers with a personalized offer. You know this customer, you know their car, you know what they like and they don't like about certain things, especially a customer that you've had for a good long time. You know their sort of quirks, if you like. You get to know them, you get to know the family. So you can offer them something that's personal to them, something for their car. It's got to be worth a shot. That has got to be better than sending out a message in the hope of catching a customer. Sending a personalized message to a specific customer has got to have a far better chance of giving a return than a generic message to all of your potential customers. What about something that's common in the household that this vehicle that it's been booked in hasn't had? So if they have a history of having aircon services done with you, but let's say the son has just booked their car in for a service but doesn't have or hasn't had an aircon service, is it worth saying, do you know what? When was the last time you had your car aircon serviced? And because there's a, if you like, a common household thread of having aircon service, you might see the value and benefit of having that aircon service because you're personalizing the offer. But by far the best way to increase sales per customer is to improve the customer experience. Fact, that is always the best strategy. Improve the customer experience and you will improve your sales per customer. If I made you think a little bit about how you operate your garage business, then I've done my job. If you want to know anything more about the Atomic Success Program, we may or may not be looking for 3 garages to join us after Easter. I'm sort of looking at whether or not I've got enough time to do it. I'd love to help 3 garages as I have been helping the other garages. It depends on my time. If you are interested, send me a DM and I'll add you to the list. We'll have a Zoom chat at some point, and if we're going to go ahead with it, and you will obviously, have a look at the program. We'll have a look at you, see if we can help you, and see where it goes from there. Have a great evening. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which doesn't leave much, and stay safe. Thanks for listening.